Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the ReQuest. I'm Captain Logan. Joining me, as always, is Austin, the Day Ghost. And this evening's request comes from Malik Myers, once again on Patreon. And Austin, this is, of course, one of the more recent requests that we've ever done on this show. Usually people ask for things that are several years old or decades old. And this time, Malik took the opportunity to make us do basically how we felt about on a semi-brand new movie, a movie that came out only a couple of months ago. And I didn't, or was it even just a month? I think March, this movie came out. And this was a thing that was not on my radar. I had no idea what he was talking about. He was like, hey, there's this little indie movie you should watch called The Outfit. And I'm like, what's The Outfit? Okay. And I went into this as blind as I could, like I usually try to do, but was surprised that he was asking for something from this year, from 2022. Austin, had you heard about this? Did you know anything about this movie?
So when you said it, I was like, The Outfit, what the heck is that? I don't know what that is. And then when I looked it up, it was like, oh, it's from this year. Oh, I almost saw this in the theater. Because I like check weekly to see like what's new coming out. Because I go to the theater almost weekly. And I'll just kind of look to see what's new and kind of go from there. And I almost went to see this, and I think something came up, so...
Man, I feel like a terrible movie fan at this point. Like, I've seen very few movies this year. I've never considered myself really like a movie buff, but obviously, like, you know, you're kind of more of a movie buff than me. Connor, DJ, like a lot of the guys that I work with on the channel are more movie people, and I'm kind of more broadly like narrative guy, like story guy. So I like stories in any kind of medium, but I don't even want to say comics first. Like, maybe I am even movies before comics, because my whole fandom begins with of superheroes, begins with superhero movies, but I'm just not as well watched as I'd like to be. And
I think we all say that. I think like every single person in the world isn't as well watched as they want to be.
Well, you can't help but just compare yourself to the next person you know that knows a lot more than you do, right?
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I certainly don't watch anything like as many of these kinds of films as I ought to, and I feel like I used to do more maybe, although right now maybe I'm doing more than I have in a long time because we're doing the request weekly, and some of these kinds of movies are coming up now, so I'm getting... I say this a lot, but like I'm stretching my legs, I'm getting out of my comfort zone, I'm seeing a lot of things that I wouldn't think to just turn on myself, but once somebody forces me to sit down and look at it, I'm like, oh yes, I kind of need this in, you know, my repertoire of things I've seen, and I need things like this to kind of, you know, influence me. And so I say that to mention that I have this very skewed perspective right now that everything current is bad. And I know that's not wholly true, but one of the reasons that I don't get to watch enough, enough variety of enough of a diversity of things is because I'm always doing, you know, mainstream stuff for the channel and, you know, superhero stuff and, you know, the big tentpole blockbusters and things like that, and I don't have the time, or I don't take the time to look at smaller things, and so I get this kind of skewed idea that like, nobody's making like real movies anymore, and like I know that's not true, but I'm not seeing them, so it always feels like that. And then something like Everything Everywhere All at Once comes along, and I'm like, okay, why am I not like rushing out to see things like this? And then I see The Outfit, and things like this, I'm kind of right away showing my hand with this, but things like this make me go, oh man, like I would feel a lot less depressed about entertainment if I would just see what the people that no one is paying attention to are making.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's actually the nice thing I think about this year is, at least out of like the last few, I think a lot of the releases have been a lot better, at least from what I've seen. I think on my list of things I've watched this year, I think I'm up to like 22, 23. So I have enough to do, a top 10 and a top 10 best, top 10 worst. But if I were to do that, there'd be at least three things in my top 10 worst that I actually like. So it's
So
pretty
that's
decent.
a good year.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's more than I can say about the last few years. So.
I've only seen probably 5 or 6 total movies this year, and maybe a
I
little
do
bit
have
more
a
than
few
that.
shows on my list. I just use Letterboxd, so whatever's on there, I slap on.
because I'm suddenly remembering that, like, I unfortunately watched the Firestarter remake last week, and that was awful. And we were supposed to review that last Friday, and I was like, let's do something more fun. I don't even want to dignify this with a review. Like, don't go see that. Just trust me on that. But anyway, maybe somebody liked it, but I thought it was a complete waste of time. But yeah, I think right away before we even get into synopsis and what this movie's about, I would put this in my top 2 or 3 movies of the year so far. Like, I can't put it above Everything Everywhere, but like this and The Batman, I think, are fighting for that second spot for me right now. This is such a wonderfully well-crafted movie. Like, I miss movies like this. Austin, why don't you tell us a little bit about the outfit?
So the outfit is almost like a closed room crime drama. We're in a tailor shop, even though he's not a tailor.
He tells us he's a cutter,
Yeah, exactly.
which is
We're in a cutting
different.
shop. And it's just kind of looking at
He makes suits. He makes men's suits.
yeah, exactly.
They're very expensive, and they're nicer than suits you can get anywhere else because he's posh and British.
Yeah, and I think this is what, like the 40s.
So let me say this real quick, since you're asking. It's 1956, and
Okay.
I spent the whole movie having to, because that I did look at before I started watching, or maybe while I was watching, I looked it up, because I was like, okay, are we like, what decade are we in? And I had to remind myself constantly that this wasn't the 40s because it really feels that way, and I don't even think that that's necessarily a criticism, because it feels really authentic with all the organized crime stuff and with the way people are speaking and stuff. But it's just wild to think, like, Star Trek the original series comes out 9 years after what's happening in this movie. This is not a historical piece. Like, this is historical fiction, of course. These are all it's a fictitious story. These are all fictional characters. But like, I think more or less this probably is like what it would be like, at least through kind of, a Hollywooded lens. But yeah, I kept thinking 40s the whole movie. It's not. It's the latter half of the 50s.
Yeah, I think just anything with these kind of like gangsters, like this point, you immediately go, okay, like 40s gangsters.
Well, it kind of feels like there's a point being made with that a little bit, maybe, that like organized crime was still so prevalent and had such a chokehold. So like, you think of the 40s, but then this is when like Al Capone really had a hook in everything. And this movie is very much about the globalization of crime, of organized crime during this period.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so this movie is about a cutter who has a shop that gangsters kind of go in and out of. They use to like hang out and chat about things. So he's uh like privileged to a lot of information about them, and then we suddenly get a lot more drama as he gets kind of pulled more into it. Or is he maybe not pulled into it? Who knows?
We're going to start off with some non-spoiler talk, and then and then we'll let you know that we're doing spoilers and discuss details a little bit. Not a full-on spoiler cast, but I wanted to make sure that folks that might click on this video just wondering what this movie even is had an opportunity to hear us kind of pitch it to them, because I think this is a thing that folks should look at, and I don't want to ruin the big revelations and the ending and stuff for people. I want to correct you on one thing you said, because as far as I understand it, the crime family that has its hooks in this neighborhood is actually more involved with this cutter shop than you were saying. I think he's actually allowing them to keep money there.
Yeah, no, that is true. I should admit, I had some technical difficulties early on, so there's like a few things in maybe like the first 10 minutes that I think kind of maybe passed me by a little bit.
Oh,
But
sure,
no,
fair enough.
you are correct.
I think that's kind of an important plot point, just to in again, don't want to give too much away right at the beginning, but the point is that he doesn't want to have anything to do with organized crime if he can help it, and he unfortunately met the leader of this gang as his very first customer when he first got to Chicago from Britain, and he's kind of forced to be in league with them for the sake of his own safety and for the sake of his employee, a young woman who also wants nothing to do with the mob, but they have a lot in common, of course, and she is dating the mob boss's son, and so she's also like deeply involved in all of this and is trying to escape and leave Chicago and make a better life for herself. And at first I thought that's what the whole story was going to be. I kind of thought maybe it would be either a dual protagonist thing, or she was going to be the protagonist and he was kind of our eyes in to her plight. I thought it was going to be like a coming of age kind of thing, and she disappears very early on, and then I'm thinking, okay, the story's not actually about her at all, and then it will wind back around to her again later on. But I really like the way this movie is structured, because it's constantly making you guess about what even the point of it is and where things are going, and then by the end it's wonderfully cohesive, and I think it's pretty unpredictable, with the exception of one thing that we'll get into with spoiler talk that I completely called about 5 minutes into the movie.
Oh yeah, for sure. Cap, what would you say is your best thing, worst thing? I guess we should start there, since you wanted to do kind of how we felt about things.
Yeah, probably do that whole thing. So this is a, like you said, closed room drama, and I love those when they're done well. So it's hard not to say just best thing is scope with minimalism. So this is a movie that there's a lot going on, and it's wonderfully complex, but when you get to the end of the movie, you realize that the story is actually a great deal simpler than it seems. Like, if you lay out all of the major beats with this movie, it would take you like 15 minutes to explain everything. It's one of those stories. But
it's also like a stage play.
It's a stage play. Yeah.
This would be killer on on the stage. It would be amazing.
Yeah, it's just like 12 Angry Men in that way. I brought that up again recently when we did a movie about that Nazi meeting. What was the name of that film? I forget now.
Oh, Conspiracy?
Conspiracy, yeah. That's another closed room drama, which you found boring and I thought was riveting, but I think I like this movie better than that. Mm-hmm. They're doing different things, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But that's also a movie that could be a stage play. This would be more entertaining, certainly. But again, they're after different things. I think this wants to be an entertainment more than that does. Certainly. But yeah, I really love... I mean, I like so much about this. I love the intensity of it. I love, like I said, minimalism, where the whole thing takes place inside a single location. And this guy is cutter shop, his tailor shop, and... It's really well shot. This is this director's first directorial debut. He's
wow.
He's a writer first.
I meant to look up the director, but forgot. I would not have guessed.
Graham Moore, who wrote the Imitation Game, and
okay,
with novel called The Sherlockian. I'm sorry, what was it?
Isn't that the Cumberbatch movie, Imitation Game?
Yeah, I think so, but I've never seen it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard that's really good. I think it was nominated at the Oscars.
But yeah, hard to say favorite thing. I guess maybe I have to go to the really obvious thing and just say the main character's performance, right? Mark Rylance. Like, he's brilliant. You never fully understand his motivation, and until much later in the movie, and he does a wonderful job of keeping everything under his vest. He is the perfect manipulator. It's like, and then I just keep thinking of other things that trump the last thing I said, like, maybe it's structure, or like maybe it's maybe it's setup and payoff. Like it's hard not to say just writing in general. It's just a really well crafted, well put together movie. I also like that it's a movie about craft versus art, while at the same time it's a kind of textbook literary narrative that's like beat for beat what you're told in writing school to do with a simple script. And then you get to the end and you go, nah, it is art. Like there's this almost unreliable narrator in our protagonist, in like his attitude toward his own work, and maybe even this meta thing of the work of the piece versus what the movie itself is saying. And I found myself going, oh, the movie, maybe it's not doing this on purpose, but it's actually kind of like talking about itself a little bit, where it's like this really methodical piece that's all about the craft of it, and like there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And he says, what he does, and like everything is layered, everything is a double entendre. The outfit, of course, is a title, is a double entendre. The outfit being Al Capone's like worldwide network of organized crime versus the suits the guy makes, and then once you know the ending, it's maybe even kind of a triple entendre. But like it's just really. I keep saying meticulous. What's the real word I'm looking for? It's surgical, right? The precision of this movie, the way it's crafted, and the guy is surgical in the way he crafts what he's doing. And it could be argued that he says what I'm making is not art. I'm doing a craft, but there is an art to what he's doing, and there's certainly an art to this movie as well. And it's kind of about like doing a thing by the book. Can still at the end of the day be art. It's kind of interesting. That was the thing I really latched onto real hard. Whatever, I'm just gushing. It's a wonderful film. Worst thing, I guess, is just your kind of standard master manipulator question of, do I really buy that a person can make everything happen that is kind of made happen by the end of this movie? And I can't talk about that anymore without giving away major things. So I'm just going to go to Austin now, and I have flipped my sign green, of course. What is your best thing, worst thing?
I guess I'll start off. We have the same worst thing. I did have that same thought. Uh, Best thing. I was also going to go performance. I was going to just say performances in general, but since you threw that out there, I'll throw out another one, which is so for the last few years, I've had this kind of thought where Quentin Tarantino kind of gets that like Alfred Hitchcockian like suspense thing, like more than a lot of directors. And there's a part in Inglourious Bastards that's almost like the exact like people talking at a table with the bomb under it thing, that like the famous quote. It's not exactly that, it's tweaked, but I was like, from a certain point, I think he kind of gets that mentality more than most directors. This director also, I think, gets it more than like anybody else. I think there's a lot of just like great like atmosphere and suspense, and like it really like keeps you going along with like exactly what's happening, and like different things like that. And it really pulls you through, and it doesn't feel like you're just stuck in a room the entire movie. And obviously, there's like two or three rooms, but you know what I mean. Like it doesn't feel
It's somehow not
claustrophobic.
claustrophobic. Yeah, even
Yeah,
though it's
exactly.
not a large building.
Yeah, exactly. They take this kind of small shop, and they manage to shoot it in a way that makes it feel grander than it actually is.
Yeah, and it's also expert. I think it's expert use of exposition helps a lot too, because whenever people are explaining things that have happened or are going about to happen, you're playing the movie in your mind. It doesn't feel like people are just giving you information you have to file away. Like it's so colorful and visceral the way people describe things that you feel like you're there even though you're not. So I keep having to remind myself we've never left this building. It feels like we have.
Yeah, no, I had that at a certain point where I was watching it, and it was maybe like an hour in, and I was just kind of like, "Hey, we haven't left the shop, have we?" I didn't really think about it until right now, but yeah, I guess we haven't. Like, I
See,
guess it
and
is that
the only
kind
reason I did is because I love movies like this. So I got 10 minutes in and I was like, is this a closed room drama? Oh, it is!
of. Oh yeah, no, for sure. No, it's really great. Um, it's one of those movies. Like, I think you said it was your second or third of the year. I think it's like my fourth or fifth, but it's
You've seen more movies than me, and you've seen
I
movies that I've
have.
heard people call masterpieces that I've not seen yet. So,
Well, and that's what I was gonna say is it's like fourth or fifth, but this movie is like wonderful. Like I
in a worst year, it's number one or two, probably, right?
exactly like it's one of those movies where your kind of complaint thing, like the only dislike I can really think of is is maybe convenient. Probably, I don't know. Like when that's your main complaint, like
And most importantly, that didn't take me out of the movie. Because I didn't have that thought till it was over.
mhm. No, it's just kind of when you get to that, it's yeah, it just kind of it's inherent to this kind of idea, I think. Like there's tons of good movies with like that kind of master manipulator thing, and it's convenient, but like I
But
don't
it
think
does
that really
track.
drags away.
It's not
Yeah.
the Maman Spawn thing. It's even a little bit better than like the Dark Knight Joker thing, I think.
Mm.
But there,
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
because it isn't like there's all these random things that happen and then retroactively we go, oh, it was this person who planned all of this all along. Like it does track. There is kind of like a web that unravels, but
It's like a good mystery, like a good like Sherlock Holmes or like that type of mystery thing, right? Where like you get that kind of piece that fits in and you see how it all connects. And
yeah, it's just the question is simply, could a person be there are too many things that you'd have to be sure would happen to make the entire plot work, and I think it tries to minimize some of that by having at least a couple of places, and one major one at the end where our protagonist has to think on his feet, and we're like he didn't predict something that would happen, and yeah, at one point it looks like the whole thing is going to completely fall apart and he's going to lose.
yeah, yeah, exactly. No, stuff like that does help it from feeling. It's that you never see the Joker set things up, that type of thing. There's never that moment where Batman's like one step ahead and he like walks in while something's being set up, which you kind of get more so in this.
We can go ahead and get into spoilers after anything else you want to go ahead and mention, because I think we should probably talk about the big convenient thing that I'm not buying, because I don't have a lot of criticisms, and maybe that's a good place to start, and then we can just get into more of the movie. But anyway, what else do you did you were you thinking watching the movie?
This was like a more funny thing. I mentioned this to you, but I'll mention it on the stream, which is 5 minutes in, I was like, oh man, this secretary looks like exactly like a young Leah Thompson. That's so weird. Look her up. Oh, it's her daughter. Oh, it's that like really annoying woman from Zombieland 2 that I hated. But
Oh, that's
here.
who that is.
Yeah.
You mentioned Zombieland 2, because I didn't know where she was from either. But now, in the moment that you're saying that, I know who you're talking about. And
Yeah,
in
she's
that
like
party scene,
they pick up. Yeah, and she's like there.
oh,
They think she's dead, and then she comes back later. Like the entire time I was in the theater seeing that movie, I had like an ice pick. I wanted to stab in my brain every time she spoke. And then when I found out she was Leah Thompson's daughter, it was like, oh, that's unfortunate. She got a good movie here. She's really good in it.
I think she's really good in it. Yeah. Well, and we should probably mention too that there's a lot of wonderful performances in this, and most of the actors in this movie only come in for a scene or two. And like you have the main mobsters that get a lot more screen time. but then some of the most important characters in the movie are talked about more than they're actually seen, and have a lot of screen presence, or a lot of presence, I should say, in the story, kind of behind the scenes, where you're really imagining them and painting a picture of them, particularly the main mob boss, before he finally comes into the picture. But you also have that with the members of the Black French gang, and then there's other things that you never see, like the outfit is this ominous idea behind the scenes, and never appears because it can't.
No, it's got that. I always go back to this because I think this is like the perfect example of it. It's that Sauron thing, right? Where you're like villain. In that case, it's a villain, but character is not really going to be there. But they're talked about enough that they build a presence just off of that.
I kind of wondered if we would ever see the main mob boss. Mm-hmm. And then when he shows up, he's great.
Yeah, there's no real weak performances. Like you said, like you'll get people that come in for just a scene, but everything.
Roy, I don't know about the name Roy for that kid, but it was what we're saying.
That was okay. You know what? That's my biggest complaint. That guy should not have been named Roy.
The worst thing is that their kind of Carmine Falcone is Roy.
Yeah, have you ever seen Batman fight a guy named Roy? You get the Stan Lee box where it's like Batman's greatest villain, Roy. And I know that you didn't write Batman, but that's just my go-to for that kind of comic book narration.
Do you want to go ahead and get into spoilers?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, so let me just start with the big convenient thing that I'm not really buying, which is I think too much of our main characters' plans hinge on a phone call happening at a particular time. There's a place where the phone rings, and if that hadn't happened, Leonard, I keep forgetting his name, Leonard Berling, if that hadn't happened, he would be dead, and you wouldn't have, 2/3 of the movie, or half of the movie. And I like that there are places where, like I said earlier, he can't... Since we're into spoilers, I'll just say, so it turns out that our protagonist actually got the ball rolling for this entire plot all along. You're led to believe at first that maybe he is the rat. We're looking for a rat. There's a MacGuffin, which is a tape that is apparent that is ostensibly supposed to be CIA or FBI
FBI
tape. Pardon me. Giving this family's crime plans and everything they've been doing, and it would take down the whole organization. Yes, that kind of thing. And there's a rat that is somehow connected to the organization, and there's in the first act there's this what seems like a giant revelation where he comes out to one of the mobsters and says, yeah, it was me, I was the rat. And then the mobster doesn't believe him, and they laugh about it, and you're led to go, okay, but something's going on, right? Maybe he really was the rat, and it's sort of like Superman, or it's sort of like Clark Kent saying, I'm Superman, nobody believes him, but he really is. What is really happening? And it will turn out that not only is he not the rat, but he actually created the tape, and it's a fake tape. And he did this in order to try to bring down the organization so that he no longer has to be involved with organized crime. And ultimately, his motivations for all of that are the most fantastic and surprising reveal of the piece, which is he was actually a gangster himself back in Britain. And that was the big thing I didn't call. I spent the whole movie going, how is he so good at this? And like I didn't expect an explanation. I thought it would just be I mean, and maybe you could be led to believe this, right? Like he's been around the bend. He hears things. He knows what's going on. He's gotten better at it than them just by watching, and he's able to. We use his trade as a metaphor for his master manipulation ability. Maybe he could just translate it, like maybe just making suits the way he does with his very organized and methodical mind. He's able to translate that to manipulating all of these people to off each other so that he doesn't have to deal with organized crime anymore. And then it turns out, no, he used to be one of them. And that's why he's so good at it. And that's spectacular. I mean, I felt the need to lay all of that out to get back to my point, because you weren't actually able to really give us a synopsis at the beginning, or you would tell us everything that happens in this movie. But yeah, what do you think about that phone call? There's a place where he's about to get killed by Roy, right? Yeah. By the maid mobster, and the phone rings, and he is resourceful, and he answers the phone and he pretends like it's Roy's son who has been killed by, or I'm sorry, not. Is it? Yeah, Roy's son, who's been killed by the other lieutenant of the mob family, right? And he pretends like the person on the other end is his son, and it's actually not that. But he uses that in order to send off Roy to be murdered by the rival gang, and. Like, I like that he's resourceful, and that he has to be think on his feet like that, Austin, but that seemed like a major part of his plan. It seemed like he had to have almost known that was going to happen. Because what else was he going to do if that phone never rang? Like, not just he would get killed, but also a huge part of the plan is we've got to send Roy off to die.
Yeah, I think because that comes like a bit before you find out that it was like a master manipulator thing. So I wonder if it's maybe because in the moment I was like, oh, like this is really convenient that this phone call happened. But I also didn't realize he was like controlling everything. So
But he didn't have someone call is the problem.
No, I know. I agree. Like, it's definitely very convenient. That's one of those things where you think back afterwards, knowing everything,
because he has no accomplices.
That really didn't fit. Yeah.
Like even the girl who works for him is an unwitting accomplice. She doesn't really do anything on purpose to help him. He just uses her like he uses everybody else, in more of a benign way. Part of the reason he's doing this is to help her, so that she can get out from under the mob's thumb.
Yeah, because he has almost like a daughter thing with her, kind of relationship there, especially since his own daughter died back in England. Like,
I love all of that, because so often we're jumping all over the place, but so often what will happen is pseudo, father-daughter or father-son relationship like this, father figure, and it'll be just, and this is okay. I just thought it was really cool that it went deeper with this. Usually it'll just be these people are lonely and they don't have a lot of family and they spend more time with each other than they do with their own families. Here, it's about both of their pasts, and we don't know that at the beginning when they have that wonderful exchange where they can't bring themselves to say father and daughter, but he says you're not mine, and she says you're not mine. That whole bit, we find out by the end that he has had his wife and kid murdered by the mob he used to work for, because he tried to get out, and he legitimately was trying to become a cutter. The term cutter itself ends up being a double entendre, because he was a cutter for the mob, and then he's a more benign cutter, right? And then they find him and axe his family, and then he comes to Boston. Not Boston, to Chicago. her father has been killed by the mob. And so they have this in common. Both of them have lost their families to the mob and happen to look to each other because they fill in those gaps. So he needs a daughter and she needs a father, and they're both intrinsically linked by their tragic past, both of which are the mob. And even though they're different mobs, the outfit brings all the mobs together. Like it's one thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I just thought that was some really nice tight writing.
No, that's what I was gonna say too. It's very tight. Everything's so dense.
It really is, though. Like every detail matters. There's nothing there that doesn't reveal something about character, and it feels like by the end of the movie, like clearly the writer knew where everything was going, and people aren't just doing things for whatever reason and will come up with it later. Like it's very deliberately put together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, exactly. As you said earlier, it fits that kind of cutter image, of like it's so methodically cut out and pieced together. I can't believe this is somebody's first movie. That's insane. Obviously, he's a writer first, so that definitely goes into it.
That helps a lot.
Yeah.
But the filmmaking is as good as the writing, I think.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. There's no real like sore spot in the filmmaking, I don't think. We're like, oh, they don't really know what they're doing.
No, it's got a real command of narrative, but it's also got a real command of the camera. Were you surprised by how violent this movie is?
I was, yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I knew it was like a crime thing, but I assumed it would be a much more I can't think of the word, but like not as graphic both in violence and as vulgar as it is.
Yeah. And I question, and I do this a lot, and you can call me prudish if you want to, but like I did question the consistent use of the F word just in 1956. I'm not sure. Maybe it's how gangsters talked even then.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't know. Because like I'm not used to things from this period having that much of that particular kind of vulgarity. But then, is that because that's less of how people at the time were speaking, even kind of like really violent, dangerous people, or is it because movies at that time weren't using those words?
Yeah, like that kind of cleaning up the past type thing.
Yeah, or just censorship at the time.
Oh, well, yeah. Oh, yeah, when you're talking about, movies from the 50s.
No, movies from that period, like, they're not going to use that word as often.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it wasn't spoken.
Yeah, and it's hard to say...
I mean, if you watch a lot of movies from the 60s, you'd think nobody in that entire decade had sex. Like...
Everybody had the separate beds.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Bewitched can snap her fingers and they move together.
I should say, television more than movies, but there was plenty of censorship happening already in movies as well.
Oh, of course.
You don't get a lot of Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
Unfortunately. Still my number one ReQuest movie.
But yeah, did you feel the violence was appropriate?
Yeah.
I thought so too.
No, for this type of thing, like you're gonna have that. It shocked me because I didn't expect it to go that far.
I thought it needed to be this visceral and and gut punch you as hard as it does. Like there are places where it's hard to look at, particularly early on when I think the character is Richie has been shot and they have to do like makeshift surgery on him. Like that's hard to look at when he's like when he has to sew him up and he's like, clothes are different than people. But the other guy's got the gun on him. He has to do it.
Yeah. No, it's almost got like a 1950s like Reservoir Dogs thing going on with that kind of stuff, and it being a closed room kind of crime movie.
Yeah, I felt like it had to be that rough so that we would really appreciate uh, just how awful and terrible that world is and that life is that our protagonist has been trying to escape from. He can't get away from it. I think that's also the reason that we have mobsters from so many different places. That like we're talking about the outfit, the globalization, but then we also have French mobsters and Irish mobsters, and like they all came from other places and took over America.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that too about the main character trying to get away from that, because that makes it really neat where he's very, for lack of a better word, like posh in the way that he talks.
Yeah.
While all the kind of gangster characters are very vulgar in how they talk, and I think that kind of helps, kind of show that in a dialogue way.
Yeah, and he's an opportunist, so he uses all of his ability and his personal strengths to his advantage any way he can. So you buy that nobody's looking at him as possibly being the rat, much less the person that orchestrated all of this. Like, because it's actually a conspiracy. It's not just and not with the government, not with the FBI. He's doing this all by himself.
Yeah, and then it helps to keep you off the trail of him also being a former gangster. 'Cause you kind of don't see that character in that way, in the same way that the other gangsters don't see what he's doing.
What's So something that I was sorry, I was distracted by a comment. Something I was thinking about this whole movie that you won't be familiar with, and you'll roll your eyes because I go to this all the time. But it's
I'm ready.
But no, but it's important, and you got to listen to this because you should at some point sit down and watch the show. This character is exactly a character from Deep Space Nine. There's a character in DS9 named Garrick who's a Cardassian tailor. And he was a spy for the Cardassians during the occupation of Bajor. And after the war, he goes to Deep Space Nine and he pretends to be this unassuming tailor, but he's constantly like manipulating things behind the scenes. And you never know whose side he's on. You never know if you can trust him. And he has this really like moral ambiguity and this ends justifies the means kind of mentality. He's exactly this character. Like, I'm gonna have to show this movie to my wife because Garrick is her favorite character in Deep Space Nine, and that's this guy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I was thinking Garrick the whole movie, but I kept going, well, it's not exactly Garrick, because Garrick was actually a war criminal, and oh wait, this guy was too. Oh, okay. Like with Garrick it's military, and with him it's the mob, but it's the same thing.
The same kind of thing, yeah. Just different type of criminal, but yeah. That's really interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that there would be some Star Trek in this movie.
Well, everything that's not touched on in other Star Trek shows, there's so much Star Trek, we get to in Deep Space Nine because that's the kind of anti-establishment Star Trek. Like, there's so much espionage and
I really should watch that.
You really should, yeah, and intrigue and stuff in that show. Because it's a war show and it's a Western show and it's
I don't know.
Spy thriller
I
and
punk Star Trek. That sounds awesome.
in its way, it absolutely is not.
That's great.
So the thing I saw coming a mile away was I got 5 minutes in and I didn't know anything about the Cutter. I didn't know, of course, that he used to be a gangster. I didn't know that he was capable of violence. But you cannot introduce giant shears and they're not going into somebody at some point. And like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, he is stabbing somebody at the end of this movie with these shears, and by God, we got it. And we got it in spades, man. You knew that was coming.
Oh, that's really funny. Yeah, I think at a certain point I like forgot that that he had those. But yeah, it's like Chekhov's gun. If you introduce
Exactly
a pair of shears that's getting stabbed,
they're going into somebody. And it's all. I also knew that they would have to be a major plot element because they're established early and they're established as an important item, object for this guy. That like he says that's all he came to America with. The importance of them is understated, but it turns out like they seem really important, and then when you get to the end, they're made even more important by the fact that his dead wife gave them to him. And so it's an object. Oh, and also I just thought of this, but they become anyway once, because I don't think he's probably ever stabbed anybody with them before, but they become a symbol of both freedom and violence. He uses them to get away from the mob life, and then he uses them to get back into it momentarily so that he can then leave it again. There's a reason that that we have two burned down shops. The mob burns down his shop. In Britain, he has to start all over. He's trying to get away from the mob. He can't get away from the mob. He has to recreate his own tragedy in order to be able to move on again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and cause I think the very opening is him cutting a suit, and you get like long close-ups of him kind of cutting along the fabric, and he will then go on to cut apart this mob in the same fashion, both literally and metaphorically.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of subtext there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. No, like we've said throughout, it's very tight in that way.
That's a device that I'm not sure about, too, now that we're talking about it, though. The beginning, so it opens with a voiceover that serves to do lots of stuff. It sets the mood of the piece. It gives you an understanding of this guy's personality, but something of a false understanding, because you, of course, don't realize who he really is, but that deliberate, meticulous way of doing things ends up being very important. Well, I like that it's not just voiceover for the sake of voiceover, that there's a story reason for it. At the same time, there's no reason anything whatsoever had to be on that tape. Because the tape is supposed to be FBI recording of what's going on with this mob, and then it turns out it's just fake. It could have been a blank tape, but he plays it back, and you're hearing the voiceover from the beginning of the movie, and it's like, okay, that's neat. I'm glad it's in universe, but then why did he record that? So that they would just
very theatrical.
It is very theatrical. Maybe the idea is it would be played back later. But, oh, wait a minute, this isn't what that was just some tailor talking about his job.
Well, he knew that he was going to end up with not Leah Thompson, and she was going to be like, "Oh, you have the tape," and he'd be like, "Yes, but."
I love that the two of them are sort of in on it together, but not really. I thought that was really sophisticated.
Yeah, no, and I like the moment where she realizes, like, oh, wait a minute, like, it's just been us this whole time.
Well, do you realize that she is actually playing a long game herself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That the whole reason she's dating Richie is to try to eventually get back at this mob for killing her father?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. No, she's in a long game, and he's in an even longer game above hers that connects to her game, but without her knowing.
And hers would have gotten her killed.
Yeah.
Almost certainly. Like, she wasn't any more ready for that than she was to go out in the wide world like she wants to. Like, she's in over her head. And the whole point is that he's not.
No, he has the experience that she doesn't.
And they really make you buy that. Even though I don't totally know if he could have really known everything that was going to happen that he knows, I still buy that he's good at this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree.
And then I mentioned this more cryptically at the beginning, but that speech he has at the end, I think, is just nigh brilliant, man. Where we aren't sure if he's gonna make it. He's setting fire to his shop, and the guy that he thinks he's killed, that killed Richie earlier, is alive and comes back and is, like a slasher character that we thought we killed off, and he's coming back. Maybe a little conveniently timed that he gets up right as the place is burning down, but whatever.
It's a bit convenient that he gets up then.
It's a little theatrical.
And that he survived, but yeah, he has a full, like, Michael Myers, like, get up moment where you're like, oh no.
I'm just glad that he can go cliche enough to do this.
Where he does, like, the full, like...
Yeah, or like you just see, you don't see his body on camera, but we're just shooting the room and then his hand just comes up. Like, I'm glad we didn't do that. But anyway, he's got this great speech, just as all of that's going on, about how there's no such thing as perfection. And you strive for perfection, but you know you'll never achieve it. And the reason you have to do that is because nothing great ever happens that wasn't striven for perfection. And we find out what his mistake was and how this whole thing isn't perfect. And even as he's talking about that, I don't know if he's going to make it. And then he does. So, like, what he's talking about is it turns out his own greatness, or the greatness of the thing he managed to do. And, like, it got messy at the end, but he did it, And it seems like, in a not pretentious way at all, because I can't tell if it's on purpose, it kind of feels like the piece talking about itself. Because I think it's as close to perfect a movie as it possibly could be. Like, some of the mistakes it's making, I don't know how you tell the story without making those mistakes. Like, there's no such thing as perfection. But you strive for it, and then that's when something great happens. I think this is a great movie. And then he says, at the end of the day, you do your best, and then you have to move on and go do something new. And that's what the filmmakers will do. They've done this, it's done, they'll move on, they'll make something else. It's really subtle, and again, I think kind of sophisticated way. It's talking about its own craft.
Yeah, it's almost like the ending of Inglourious Bastards, where Brad Pitt looks down at, like, this.
You reference that so much, I've got to see it. One of these nights, I'll watch Inglourious Bastards with you, and then I'll show you, awesome. And then I'll show you like 3 or 4 great episodes of DS9, and
deal.
I'll show you some Garrick episodes.
But of course, the ending of that, you got, like, he does his, like, carving thing, and it's a close-up of his face, and he goes, I think this might be my masterpiece. And it's very clearly a meta line of Tarantino talking about the movie that he made.
Do you think what I'm talking about is on purpose or not? Because I can't tell, but it works.
I could see it both ways. Like, I could see it does sound like a meta thing, but at the same time, it also fits the movie so well that it's not necessarily that, but
maybe it doesn't matter, but it reads.
Yeah, at the very least, it's a unintentional double entendre.
Yeah, and again, there's so much subtext all over this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. No, everything has so many meanings.
Okay, I have one more complaint.
Okay.
I forgot about this. So Richie gets killed, and they put him in a box, and Roy is on his way, and he's like walking in as they're like, oh crap, what are we going to do with his son's body, right? Mm-hmm. There's no way they could clean all that up before he walks in, right? Like, he gets brutally murdered, and there is a lot of blood in this movie, so it's not the, like, movie logic of, people get shot, they don't bleed. No, they do in this movie. They really do, except for there. And even then, I think we see quite a bit of blood, but just conveniently, they don't, it's not like, you haven't seen this, but, like, there's a lot of stuff in Breaking Bad about it, just how long it takes to clean up blood. And I'm like, how do they do it that fast? And then they even make a point of blood because his body starts dripping out of the box, and you were talking about suspense earlier. There's a lot of suspense built up of, oh no, is Roy gonna see the blood, right? Well, there wasn't any blood, because if there was, there's no way they cleaned it up that fast. I don't even buy they could get the body in the box that fast.
It's all part of the plan.
Did you think of that watching it?
I didn't think about it while watching it, but you are absolutely correct.
That was maybe the only thing that took me out in the moment, where I was like, well, now wait a minute. How'd they do that?
No, that is really funny. I mean, I guess, good job on the director, because the point of that is to, move people along fast enough that they don't notice things like that.
It's misdirection. It's sleight of hand, and it works. Except it didn't entirely work on me, I guess. Like, just didn't.
No, for sure.
Just with that one thing, but
yeah,
I'm with you, man. I want to see this on stage
issue.
so bad.
Yeah, that's my main thing. Is I really want to see this performed live. Get all these people back. Put on Broadway.
Yeah, I'm thinking back when I was a thespian in high school, and if this had come out then, I would have pitched this to the department. I would have tried to get this made. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe for high school you'd have to tweak some of the language a little bit. Although we did a couple plays with F-bombs and stuff. Like, I don't know how it is these days, but back when I was in school, they treated us like adults. Like, we could kind of put on any material. Like, there were. I remember one particular play that had a sex scene in it. Like, you could do about anything, and it's. I imagine it's not like that now, but also
Depends on the teacher.
Maybe so. Maybe it probably depends on the department. It probably depends on the region. Like, but just where I was. I mean, Lawrence, Kansas is kind of like the, liberal capital of Kansas. So that might have had something to do with why we could get away with some of the stuff we did. But
yeah,
but I just had that thought, like, I would have totally, because I wrote and directed a couple of plays in high school, and if I could have pitched this and gotten away with rewriting it, like tweaking it in ways to get it on stage for high school without any legal issues, like, I totally would have done that.
Yeah, that would have been awesome. Yeah, I know, like, for me, my high school drama teacher didn't care, but a lot of the other people in the art department did about stuff like that. So I think it just depends on who you're talking to.
I just assume, like, 20 years later, everything's different.
Yeah. I unfortunately did not get my high school play off the ground. My teacher got me to write a play for the school, and then they couldn't get enough people to be in it, so it was dropped.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I was always careful to. I mean, the first, I don't know, playwriting 101. Like, if you want to get a play made, you write a play with like 3 characters in it. Yeah. You make it a small cast.
Yeah, because I had a few things. It was mainly like do whatever you want, but like I think I was given a premise and maybe like a certain amount of people that they wanted, and I think I had like 8 characters, so it was like too many, and they didn't have enough interest that year for students. I was also in a bad drama class, so it like fell through. But I got to be in a play the next year, and it was completely plagiarized. So what can you do?
Yeah, we had a really good theater department, and we had a black box festival where students could submit plays and write and direct their own play, and I got to do it twice. And I think at my high school, like, I did it as a sophomore. When I was in high school, we only had sophomore, junior, and senior, and you did your freshman year at the junior high, so you only did 3 years at the high school. And so I was at the bottom of the totem pole and got a play made, and I think I was the youngest kid that had done it at that point. And people thought it was really weird that I wasn't a senior, but I got a play made. So that was always kind of a feather in my cap that I was able to do that. And then but I always wrote stuff with like 3 or 4 characters, and I did. and I wrote a play, a really goofy like sci-fi parody play, senior year, where the lead actor had to do most of the roles himself because he was like a robot that had a personality disorder, and he just kept like turning into different characters. So you had to be able to do a bunch of different impressions, and we couldn't find a guy who could do it, so I ended up having to act in my own play. And I didn't write it to do that, but I ended up having to, and that was really funny. But anyway, now we're just rambling on about when we were thespians.
Yeah, well, I mean, with my play, because I was supposed to play like a Russian character in it, and the thing I was given was that it had to be like a feel good, happy ending where like it's people in a cafe that kind of like all fall in love like with like whoever, and it kind of goes off that way. And I was like, boring. The girl that I like is gonna turn out to be like a serial killer, and she's gonna kill me at the end, and everybody else is gonna have their lovely moments while I'm like the annoying dead guy in the middle of the floor. And I handed in the script, and my teacher was like, "You can't do that."
That's awesome.
Yeah, a bit of my sense of humor peeking through.
Well, anyway, anything else you want to mention about this movie before we bid everybody farewell?
No, everybody should go see it. That's all I got.
I think so too. Yeah, I would have. Weirdly, even though this is again one room or at least one building drama, it's weirdly theatrical. Like I would have liked to have seen this on the big screen.
Yeah, definitely when I was seeing it. When I wasn't able to make it, I was like, at the same time, like, it's this movie about, like, a tailor. Like, I'm sure it's not the biggest deal if I see it at home instead. Watching it was a lot more theatrical than I expected it to be. Absolutely.
I mean, it's not a big grand spectacle movie. Like, it watches fine at home, but I don't think you'd go to the theater and go, hey, why did I need to do that? Like, I could have just stayed home and watched it. Like, I would not have minded going out to this, but it's of course not in theaters now, and it's available right now on Peacock, so if you're in the States you can watch it that way, and so it is available right now.
Yeah, if you want to subscribe to Peacock.
They've been pretty good for new like theatrically released things simultaneous with streaming though, and
No, they actually have been.
And what I like about them is it's only a $5 subscription, and so you like.
Oh, that's not bad.
I would pay that much just to see a new movie, right? So like I keep getting a subscription and dropping it because even if I suddenly had another movie I needed to see, okay, well you drop it and you pay for it again, but like $5 to see a new movie. Like I pay $4 to rent decades old things all the time, and you spend more than that to go to the movies and see it, which of course is not the same thing, but like it's a brand new movie. Like much of the time, if a movie just came out, you have to pay like $20 to buy it, and they don't have a rental option. So this is basically like renting a movie. No, like. I don't care about most of Peacock's offerings, but I think in a lot of ways it's kind of the best streaming service. Like, if only I cared more about their library. I like the way they do business. Like, it's inexpensive if you don't care about commercials. And then when you watch, and then they have a bunch of stuff you can watch just for free with commercials. You don't even need a subscription. Nobody else is doing that.
Yeah, no, that is really cool.
Except for just, things that are free in the first place. And there's some good ones there, but like the ones that you actually have to pay, nobody's giving you a free option like they are. And then if you pay the bottom $5 tier, now I'm just an advertisement for Peacock, but I really like what they're doing. If you pay, I mentioned this before, but if you pay the $5 tier, you still have commercials, but for movies they put them all up front. So it's like
that's really nice.
It's like 1 minute and 20 seconds of commercials, and then they never interrupt you again. Like, it's a really good service. Like, I like how they do business.
Well, Cap, since we're on this topic, do you want to mention the real reason you like Peacock?
What's the real reason I like? Because of Firestarter? I hated that movie.
No, because of how it
Clifford?
The video description.
Oh, sorry. I forgot all about that. Yes, so I want to make a whole video about this, And I need to figure out if I get flagged by giving examples, because I really want to make a whole video just with examples of this. But what I don't... Okay, so I said Peacock is great. I don't know why this happens, at least on my desktop. But the default audio option, I forgot. I talked about this on After Dark, but the majority of you guys haven't heard about this yet.
Quoting it on the channel.
Nobody knows what you're talking about. So the default audio for me when I watch anything on Peacock, and it happened with this movie too, is descriptive English audio for the visual impaired, meaning there's a computerized voice that describes everything that's happening on screen. And so when you're just watching the movie, it'll be like, and then such and such character rubs his chin, and then you'll hear the man speaking, and then it'll go back to, and he's pacing the floor now. But it also describes the logos in the most, flowery, poetic possible way. So you get, the Universal logo at the beginning of Firestarter, right? And it's like, it's like the Earth is spinning.
Well, I think even better. I think it starts with it's like space. The Earth is spinning.
It's like out. Yeah, you think you're watching Star Trek? It's like our. It's like space. The Earth appears and it's spinning, and silver block letter words fly across the screen.
It's even better. It's like blocked letters of silver and gold fly across the screen.
And then it gets to the Blumhouse logo, and it's like there's a chair in a room and it's spinning.
There's a woman in the corner.
It's awesome. I want to watch a whole movie like this. I haven't done this yet, and then I got to make a video about it. I need to make something and upload it unlisted and see what I can get away with it, because I've got to show this to people. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, that was one of the best things in the most recent After Dark. I mean, I can't stop going silver and gold. And it's so detailed too.
Yeah, that's what's crazy about it.
It describes that there are lights indicating cities on the planet.
Yeah. And then this movie had it with Focus what is it? Focus Pictures? Yeah, that's what it is. And it was overlapping circles of varying sizes and colors.
Silver and gold.
It's out of focus circles, and then
what I like too with Firestarter, because that's the one
it just goes a Comcast company.
That was the other best part. It goes Universal, a Comcast company.
It's real dramatic, and then it just goes a Comcast company.
And then there's that one also with Firestarter where it was you're going down a road, long grass fills the sides of the screen, weed road pictures.
Anyway, well, folks, thanks a lot for watching us ramble on about this movie. It was wonderful, and thanks to Malik for making us watch it. Next time...
yeah, this was a Patreon thing. They got an entire show where we rambled about nothing at the end. Perfect.
Okay, so next time, we're gonna be doing Eraserhead, which I've never seen. No, Jeremy Scott asked for Eraserhead.
I just wondered because it's a David Lynch movie.
Oh yeah, that is I can't get away from Lynch. Connor promised me he'd never make me do Lynch again, and now other people are like, well, fine, I'll make him do Lynch.
Oh, that's funny.
Guys, it's about a 3 to 4 month wait right now on the request. We have quite a few folks still on the tier and asking for movies and things. It's only we're as caught up as we can be. It's only a backlog because we get so many requests. But if you would like to put in a request and get it a few months from now, you can go to patreon.com/geekvolution. The $15 tier gets you access to that. We will review a movie or a pilot of a TV show or a comic miniseries or an arc of comics, And anyway, thanks a lot, everybody, for watching. We'll be with you again next time for Racerhead. And also on Friday, we're going to be doing another request for the Comic Vault because this is a thing I'm behind on, and I wanted to kind of double up on it this week. So we had a standing request for a long time, and by the way, I don't do them this way anymore because sometimes it's months in between, and I can't remember what happened from like one arc to the next arc. So I'm not doing this anymore. But I had a standing request for a long time from Ian, who asked me to do both Star Wars Legacy and Smallville Season 8. So I'm going to get back to Star Wars Legacy, and Austin has graciously volunteered to help me out with that. So we're going to do the first 2 arcs of that. I've read now the first, 40-something issues, I think, of that, but it's been a long time, and I was gearing up for a big show on it, and then something happened and it fell through, and it got too many weeks away from it, and I was like, I don't remember enough about this anymore, and it was very involved and way too many issues to try to review at once. It was a horrible idea, and that's why it never happened. It's been like a year and a half now. So we're finally going to do this in actual chunks that make sense, so manageable chunks.
Yep, and everyone will be horrified when I start talking about Star Wars, so it'll be very good.
Yeah, I don't think you've ever done any Star Wars content on the channel.
I don't think so, no.
Why will they be horrified?
Because of how I am on Star Wars.
Just currently, or just in general?
Currently, I used to be a really big Star Wars fan.
I was gonna say, I thought you liked Star Wars.
Yeah. No, I used to be a huge Star Wars fan, and then...
Okay, but we're gonna be talking about good Star Wars. This is not Disney Star Wars.
That is true.
You know what Legacy is, right?
Yeah. No,
this is old EU,
Yeah. I mean, I do have I am at a place where I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to watch the original movies for a while, but no, I'm sure it'll be good.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Look, you don't have to do it. I'll do it by myself. It's totally cool.
It's okay. You can put down the gun. It's okay. I'll do it.
And then tomorrow night, speaking of getting back to comics that I haven't dealt with in a while, Jason and I are going to start a series on Father and Son on the Boom Power Rangers comics. I'm going to go back and revisit the first 2 trades of that series, which I reviewed a whole bunch of issues with Eric several years ago on the old Omnibus at once, but we're going to take a closer look at those and read everything again up to Shattered Grid, and then finally actually review Shattered Grid along with everything else. So anyway, look forward to that if you're so inclined, and thanks again for watching. I was Captain Logan, and joining me once again was Austin the Day Ghost.